When the grimdark settings of modern gaming have you down, and all you want to do is escape to a mystical land of adventure, get ready for a whimsical quest through a quirky turn-based JRPG that's all about mental illness, depression, and suicide? Cool. Cool. Omari. Return to the basics with Omari, a game clearly inspired by SNES classics like Earthbound and cult horror games like Yume Nikki, whose weightless, awkward feel will remind you of every other game you've played that was made in RPG Maker, except with approximately 400 times more effort put into the art, and a fairly simple story that it stretches out over 20+ hours by revealing tiny bits of it every 2 hours or so, in a horror RPG that relies more on its twists than an M. Night Shyamalan movie, but that's still about twice as well written as your generic anime game, making it essentially Shakespeare to the average JRPG fan. You know nerds are serious when they start making Undertale comparisons. Step into the monocolored shoes of Omari, a goth who hangs out in a depressing extra-dimensional apartment, until it's time to go on ridiculous upbeat adventures with his colorful friends, who all seem inured to the fact that he's not just mute, but incapable of most emotions, and goes about destroying stuff and doing things just because people tell him to, while having zero reaction to the absolute balls-to-the-wall insanity of the world he inhabits, in a commentary on the sociopathy of the traditional RPG protagonist that's made maybe a little too obvious by having you play as an actual sociopath. You know, I've heard of heavy-handed metaphors before, but this is ridiculous. Get mad and sad in Omari's melodramatic combat, where RPG status effects are replaced with emotional states, and you'll get buffs to specific attacks by bumming yourself out before you do them, so you can more effectively slaughter the adorable bunnies that happen to cross your path, then save up energy when they counterattack, and use it to team up with your friends for special attacks that devastate your enemies, unless you try with Omari and he just pulls a Daria. Or unleash a surprisingly well-animated super, where Omari smiles for the first time in 6 months, in a turn-based combat system that can get pretty interesting during boss fights, but doesn't really solve that old problem of spending 90% of normal fights mashing attack and thinking about literally anything else. Discover the frame story that provides Omari's real narrative hook, as you slowly unwrap the real-life story of Sunny, a deeply traumatized and mentally ill child who's been seemingly abandoned by his parents, and is working out his issues via the Teletubbies Dreamland world you spend the rest of the game in, as well as real-world hallucinations and vomiting. Fun! As the game constantly rides the fine line between cutesy and horrific for contrast, until you finally get to the big reveal and learn that the game's less about dealing with grief and more about going through guilt after doing something very messed up, in a kind of emotional bait and switch that your mileage may vary on extremely, but will absolutely have you feeling something by the end, even if that thing is that you want to stay in imagination land forever. You don't have to face your demons if you're doing sick kickflips in space with Tupac Shakur. So slurp on that juice and get ready to experience video game-induced sadness in an indie RPG that you'll probably love or hate, depending on how much you enjoy the 18 hours of turn-based combat. But at least we can all agree on one thing: it did what it set out to do, and that's be depressing as shit. Starring Depressed Ness, Nissan Sentra, What Happened After Keenan Got SNL, Literal Manic Pixie Dream Girl, Sister Sayori, Mr. Sproutern, See You Space Boyfriend, Madoka Magic Yaranika Man, and Flowey, Doki Doki Breakfast Club. You know, the true horror is realizing that if they made a JRPG out of your real life, the best you'd be is this guy trying to fix his leaky pipe.